There's a story coming out of Texas, a school shooting. Usually the media blast school shootings all over the TV and the newspapers and everywhere. This one, though, you may not have heard about so much. The reason that you may not have heard about it is that it contradicts the prevailing narrative on school shootings. How does it do that? Because in the prevailing narrative on school shootings, all the shooters are white. In this case, the school shooter was black. Furthermore, it contradicts a lot of the narrative on criminal justice, because what we always hear is that the cops go really easy on white people and they're really harsh on black people. But in this case, the 18-year-old student who shot up a Texas high school was just released on bail. He shoots 4 people, injures 4 people, shoots up the school, and he gets released on bail. And so it's very sad. It's sad whenever anyone shoots up a school or shoots up a community or, commits any act of violence. But that doesn't necessarily make it a national news story. I mean, these things do happen. The reason I mention this story is to point out that this sort of thing never would have happened if the kid were white. If the school shooter were a white kid, he never would have been released on bail. There would be marches, there would be wall-to-wall news coverage, and there isn't now, because it contradicts that narrative. And I don't want to fall into the trap of saying, if the shoe were on the other foot, or, if the roles were reversed. It doesn't matter if the roles were reversed. There are double standards in this country. But you got to point it out when it happens. You have to be aware of it, because some people, I think, are still locked in that matrix. More on that in just one second. First, though, did you know that over 80% of the grass-fed beef sold in the United States is imported from overseas? Well, it might be local in Guatemala or something, but it's not local here, which is why the Good Ranchers have gone out to American ranches to bring you American meat to the American consumer, all at an incredible price. Head on over to goodranchers.com. You get better than organic chicken. You'll get American craft beef. They have T-bones, fillets, strips, gourmet burgers, and more at half the price of online competitors. You will get the steakhouse quality you deserve at a price every family can afford. I really love Good Ranchers. They got all the cuts you want. T-bones, fillets, strips. For me, this is gonna sound kind of basic. I love those burgers. Their gourmet burgers are magnificent. Go to goodranchers.com/Knowles right now. Save $20 or better yet. Subscribe and save on each box of mouth-watering American meats that will show up on schedule right to your door. That is $20 off and free express shipping if you go to goodranchers.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, or use code Knowles at checkout. $20 off and free shipping at goodranchers.com/Knowles. One of the most persistent myths, canards, from the left's narrative on race in the criminal justice system, and specifically on school shootings and church shootings and race relations, is that Dylan Roof, he's the guy who shot up a black church in South Carolina. Dylan Roof, when he was arrested, he was taken alive. He wasn't killed in the act, and he was taken alive, and the cops took him to Burger King. Have you heard this lie? First of all, the cops didn't take an arrested mass shooter to Burger King. Okay, nobody. Could you imagine the cashier at Burger King if the cops walk in with this deranged killer? No, obviously that didn't happen. The cops arrested him, but they did bring him Burger King. Okay, why did they bring him Burger King? Because they had to feed him. It is the law that no matter how heinous a crime a person commits, you have to protect certain basic rights, including their right not to be starved. They have to be fed. Furthermore, the reason the cops bought Dylan Roof Burger King is because if they didn't get him food, if they didn't satisfy these basic requirements of the law, he might have been able to get off the hook, or at least it would have raised problems for the trial, because he and his lawyers could have claimed that his rights were violated, and it would have complicated the trial, and it would have made it harder to punish him. Buying Burger King for that shooter, for Dylan Roof, made it easier to punish him. It was a tool and an instrument in order to bring justice to that shooter, okay? In this case, you're not going to hear anything about that. He was let off the hook. He was released on bail. You're not going to hear anything about that, because it doesn't fit the racial narrative. Remember this story. Remember this story the next time the left brings it up. the next time the left tries to construct one of these kooky racial narratives about it, okay? It's just not true. I'm so glad you liked that clip. I liked it too, but I'm glad that we can agree on that. Subscribe to this channel, please. I'm begging you. I'm begging you! It's the only way to help us get past some of the censorship here on YouTube. And if you want the full, uncensored, YouTube doesn't have any say over it, version of this show, you got to get the audio podcast. It's free. The Michael Knowles Show at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. Head on over wherever you get your podcasts. That is THE space MICHAEL space KNWLES space SHOW period THANKS. See you next time.